Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. We had some technical difficulties. For some reason, we lost some of our audio in this episode. So, sorry if it's a little jumpy or some things don't really make sense. My audio decided to cut out, which is a bummer because I'm pretty much like hosting this episode, which doesn't work very well if your audio doesn't work very well. So, I'm sorry about that. Hello, and welcome to the Sisters of the Shire podcast. Today, always, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Ashley, and we are going to do something a little different today. But I hope you all still stick around and hang out with us, and we will be back to our regular scheduled program of the Unfinished Tales next week. So, this week's episode, we are going to do a recap / review of the first season of the Rings of Power episodes. So just this episode is going to cover the whole first season. We're going to just barrel through. We're not going to do an episode. We're going to do all in one. So as many are aware, the second season of the show of Rings of Power has been coming out for the last few weeks because they do an episode a week. But we, meaning me and Ashley, have not watched any of them, right? Right?
Nope.
Okay. All right. We haven't watched any of them, any of the new season. So no spoilers, please. We decided to rewatch the first season just to kind of like freshen up the story in our brains because it has been 2 years since the first season came out. So, kind of like. And when I was watching the first season, I was in the middle of a really huge cosplay project and it was kind of like playing and I was stressing and I was working. And so I didn't really like zone in and really get in there. So I wanted to rewatch the first season. So now we're going to go over some lore and some history that is interwoven into the show and do a quick recap of what we loved or didn't love. But let me say this first before we move on. Okay, everybody got their listening ears on? Okay, thank you.
Yes, teacher Abby.
All right. So we are very well aware of some people's, how should I put this, distaste of the show. Some people
I would say it ranges from hatred to annoyance.
Yes. Some people really do not like it, and some have opinions and thoughts on it, and we would just like to say only this. Okay, that's fine. Sure.
That's fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
seriously.
sure your points are valid. I'm sure all your points are valid.
Seriously, you are entitled to your own opinion and whatnot just as much as we are entitled to the opinion to like the show. What about that, huh? So, listen, we know it doesn't follow the lore and the histories down to the letter, okay? We are the Sisters of the Shire. We literally do a podcast about the history and the story and the lore of Tolkien worlds. It's not lost on us that it kind of takes its own liberties, okay? We know that. We're not ignoring it. But we are kind of ignoring it. But it doesn't mean that it's any less of a beautiful story that's still filled with amazing characters and gorgeous design and costume design. Oh my gosh, beautiful. So us, are choosing to enjoy the story as is. I mean, if you really think about it, the book that we are covering right now is The Unfinished Tales, is all about the stories that didn't make it into the real storyline, quote, quote, real storyline, or they were the stories that were cut and left on the editing room floor, right? So this shows us that Tolkien stories are alive and are able to take on new life in different ways. It doesn't mean that it's the wrong version, but it's just a different view. So please come join us and just enjoy this wonderful world of Middle-earth as we discuss the first season of The Rings of Power. Let's go!
Let's go! Abby, that was so freaking good. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
So I told you you could take the reins today because I just wanted to preface though. Abby is the person this episode. I am the co-host. She is the host because I had
Yeah.
a crazy work week and I did not have the spoons or the energy to write my outline this week. And instead of giving you guys like a crappy outline and just barely making it through, we've been dying to do this. I've been dying to watch season 2. So we're doing this, and Abby is in full control. I hand over my golden microphone to you, Abigail.
I am the ghost host with the most. All right. It's spooky season. I thought I'd get into it. Okay.
I like it.
So like we said, we just finished the first season. And Ashley, I watched it by myself because my family, I usually had to watch it when my kids are asleep. And Colt is really funny with shows sometimes where he's like, I don't want to rewatch it. I just want to watch a new season. I'm like, but I want to watch what happened before. And he's like, I don't have time for that. So I watched it when he was out of town. So I just watched it by myself. But Ashley watched it with her daughter, Lizzie, and sometimes Nate, I'm assuming.
Nate, actually, Lizzie and I restarted it multiple times because she'd want to like do something while doing it. I'm like, you cannot watch a new episode while you play on your tablet. No, if you want to rewatch an old episode you've already seen, that's fine. But you are gonna have to pay attention, girl. And she's like, okay.
There will be a quiz.
Yeah, I know. I was a little strict with it, but I think it was worth it because she actually loved it.
Okay, so it was really cute because Ashley we're going to go over these questions later, but Lizzie would ask questions to Ashley and Ashley would text me the questions. And so we have some Lizzie questions to intervene some these episode recaps, because if anything, if you can relate to Lizzie, then these episodes would be really fun. Okay. So we're just going to kind of like go through each one, kind of like just the overall what happened really quickly, and then kind of talk about like what was thrown in that's actual lore, because when I watched the first season, we were in the baby stages of Sisters of the Shire, and so my knowledge of some of the things that they talked about wasn't like, I didn't know much about it yet because we hadn't gone through the Silmarillion fully yet. And they just kind of like assume people kind of know these things when they throw it in the script. And I mean, it's not a spoiler or anything. This book has been out for years, like decades. So it's like kind of, if you are not privy to the knowledge of the Silmarillion or the other books other than the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit, it could be a little confusing of like, what are they talking about? Like, I don't get it. Like my husband, who's never read anything other than the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, he's like, what are they, well, who's that? Or like, why are they talking like that? Or who are they talking about? Or what are they talking
Lizzie,
about?
who's only seen the movies, barely. Nate, who's seen the movies a few times, but he kind of has the attention span of a 5-year-old as well. So, yeah,
he's like watching a show. He's like watching the show, and you like look down to get something, and you look up, he's mowing the lawn. You're like, what? Nate?
Literally, that happened multiple times.
You look out the window, Nate? Where'd you go? Anyway,
so yeah, I would occasionally ask him like, do you have any idea what's going on right now? And I would like try and like sneak in some stuff just so like, so Morgoth was the bad guy before Sauron. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this happened like
yeah. So there's some things in there through each episode that they kind of are like, they throw in that doesn't like fully take away from the story, but it's also like, it would be cool to have those little nuggets of knowledge to know what they're talking about.
Right.
So the first episode, which is A Shadow of the Past, we see Galadriel when she's a kid, and she's in Valinor, and it's beautiful. Oh my god,
beautiful,
it's gorgeous. I want in season 2 like recaps of her remembering living over there. Just like, I just want a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so and then we see the battle that like her brother Finrod was in. Um that is what battle is that, first of all, to help with the lore? What battle is she talking about?
I'm
Or do
pretty
you
sure it's
see
the War of Wrath, the
okay.
final battle where everything changes. Morgoth,
Very
because
end.
it
They think
mentions Morgoth falls. So
they say that this was the end one. This is when Morgoth is defeated. So this is
right,
like the battle, right? And
right,
it's such a beautiful work of like the eagles and the dragons and like all
yeah,
these things. It's crazy, and it's like
hmm
also what I love about it is you feel the darkness of it. Like
hmm
it's like scary because it probably was
yeah.
scary. Um, and then
That pile of
Galadriel.
helmets, though,
I
I'm
know
sorry. How did they put the one on the top? That's my
they
question.
threw it. They
That
just threw
that
it.
scene bothers me every time. I'm like, how did they get that up there?
Well, you think about it because like when Legolas is walking on the snow, he doesn't go in the snow, remember? He's like not he's
I
trekking on top.
guess,
Maybe they could
yeah.
just like leap onto the pile.
Or I
Anyway.
also, in like the alternate version of my brain, I see her putting it on and then it all falling apart. Like she just like nicked it just like the tiniest little bit and it just all falls down.
They're like just puts the one she was holding, puts it down and walks away, like runs away like ah.
Um, but sorry,
Anyway.
real quick. I wanted to redeem myself a little bit because, like you said, when we actually did an episode with our best friend Albert regarding the Rings of Power, and there was things in there that I didn't quite put together until later, and it's been bothering me. I feel like I need to redeem myself so I don't like sound like such an idiot. Because I remember remarking that both Finrod and Galadriel had pearls on their I don't want to call
Gowns.
them nightgowns, but they're gowns. Yeah,
Say
they're
gowns.
yeah.
Robes.
And I was like, that's weird because they're not of the Teleri, they're Noldor. But and I didn't know this till later. Their mom was Teleri, so that's why they had the pearl.
Aww.
So yeah,
And who
that's
was the
why.
mom?
Earwyn, I think was her name. There's like a really
Of
pretty picture of her.
Finnerfin, and
Earwyn.
we are when beautiful.
Earwyn. Yeah. So I just wanted to review myself there really fast. Okay, I'm done.
So we might have to make this two-parter. We might just do 4 episodes and then the 4 last episodes. We might have to do that. Anyway, so we see that awful war, and then we see her kind of like, I'm going to avenge you, brother, kind of situation. And she goes and like what I think is really cool is that they show her and her like band of elf soldiers like trying to find Morgoth, but in my brain I'm like they are showing just a little bit of the hell cracks, which we don't get to see of like in the
Yeah.
beginning with Fëanor and all that stuff, because she did cross the hell cracks, right?
Yep.
Galadriel. So like I feel like we don't get to see that original story, but we kind of get to see that a little bit because I feel like the elves when they were traveling, when they were like either going to be going back to Valinor or if they were going to stay on Middle Earth, they kind of all had like easy lives. They're like, we're
Right.
going to stay next to this waterfall. It's beautiful. Like there,
Right.
or oh, we're going to stay on this beautiful beach and island and have pearls
Right.
and jewels all the time. We're going
Right.
to stay in this gorgeous green forest. Like they
Right.
don't have a lot of hardship on
Right.
traveling. Like they are
hmm
very like, what's the word? Not soft, but like they just don't have any like hardship with the traveling like that. So I think it's
Yeah.
cool when they showed that they did have to go
It
through
was hard won.
something. Yeah, it was a struggle for them, which in
Yeah.
an elf's life, there isn't a lot of struggle.
And it also
So,
ties in that Morgoth was in the north, which is kind of, if you think of the Lord of the Rings and where all the bad guys were, you think of, Mordor, and you think of the hot. And
discussions.
so, yeah, it being in the north is like that is very true to the story, that's where Morgoth was. He was in the north. Like, they did that right.
Yes. And I love when she said when they're in the fortress or whatever, and one of her elf companions is like, my hands are like, they can't feel anything, they're
Oh,
frozen.
yeah.
She's like, oh, it's just the evil is too much in here, that it's,
Yeah.
taking away any sense of heat or warmth or whatever. And I'm like, that's because in my brain, I'm like, why did Morgoth go to such an awful place? So it's like, oh, because it's just, he's awful. He just went to this
Yeah.
sad, very like harsh place. Anyway, so I thought that was pretty cool that they included that, like,
Yeah.
a Hell kind of situation.
Yeah. And I really wish they could have named it Angband, because that's what it was, if that's what it was. But, one thing I have to always remind myself, there are certain liberties they're allowed to take and certain names and words they're allowed to use. Sorry. And that might not have been one of them. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And just know, like, if you don't know this already, like, I think there was some legal thing with the show that they couldn't do, like, they weren't able to use everything that they could have with,
right.
like, names of things and just under
Right.
legal problems with the Tolkien estate.
Right.
So let's just be happy for what we got, guys.
Yeah,
At least her name
100%.
is still Galadriel and not like
Right.
Gale. You know what I mean? Anyway,
one thing I did have an issue with was the ships going to Middle Earth, because, like, if you know what really happened with the kinslaying and everything, like, it wasn't that big of a massive ships. Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was my one caveat. That, okay, I get the story you're trying to tell. The kinslaying is a huge part of that part, though, but they probably
The
couldn't
scene where
use
they sailed and asked the gods, or the Maya.
They had to, like, the sword things up there, and
they're like, come help us in the beginning of this episode when she kind of does a recap.
Yeah. So when the we left our home and we went to this forsaken land of Middle Earth, and it shows like all of these ships going towards Middle Earth. I'm like, I think they're just like Fëanor and all of his sons on like one ship would be more accurate.
Yeah.
But it doesn't quite look as cool.
So I'm kind of, for each episode, I'm kind of just going to finish the storyline of like one character at a time, just really quickly. So like, I'm not going to jump around like the episode. So anyway,
I like that.
When Galadriel comes and she finds some clue about orcs still being around, which, jumping to that scene, they were talking about how orcs were being created.
Yes.
And you saw like other kind of weird, like, this experiment did not work. Like, this is not great. And it kind of shows that, it goes back to that instance in the Silmarillion where it talks about how Morgoth he kind of had to pull parts from other things because he couldn't create on his own.
Yep.
Like the other Valar.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of, I like that they showed that he like had a lot of messed up looking things because he was stripped of the power to create something like that, or like something that worked or beautiful or all that stuff. He kind of got left with like the dregs and like kind of had to Frankenstein some things together and be like, this works. Staple, some glue, some tape.
And
so I like that they showed that.
The symbol was interesting too, which is off canon, off book, but I don't hate it. At the symbol,
I think it's cool. I think it's something interesting. Like, there's so much like symbolism things that Tolkien said, and there was, this sword
Yeah.
that had a name. The end. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, so
Yeah.
why couldn't it be one of those things?
Right.
Anyway, so when she came back to Lindon,
Yes.
and Gil Galad is like, "You did great, everyone. You showed that the world is clean of orcs. Your prize is you get to go home to Valinor. Thank you for your service." And then we get to see Elrond for the first time. I love Elrond.
I
Okay,
love Elrond.
but one side note, and I don't want to delve into this too much, but why was Elrond like, "I'm so proud of you, Galadriel. I put your name down to go on the ship to Valinor, so I won't see you again for a really long time, my best friend." It's like, that seems so sad to me. If I was like, "I went through this horrible thing. I want to talk to my best friend and, be home for a bit." He's like, "Well,
Nice seeing
I,
you.
yeah, I made sure that you're on the
I
next ship
arranged
out
for
of
your
here."
retirement.
Yeah. I don't know, because to me, it's like if you go to Valinor, you don't get to see, and it's not like it didn't sound like Elrond had any plans to go to Valinor anytime soon. So it's like, "I've missed you so much. Now I'm going to send you away where I'm not going to see you again for even longer." So it's like
Right.
that part made no sense to me with their friendship. That was like, that's gonna.
Yeah.
I would be like, "No, stay. I just got you back."
Right. And he's even encouraging her,
Anyway,
you
and
need
so
to go.
yeah,
But
so
I also could
she,
see the aspect of you are like going slightly insane if you think, because they thought that the orcs were gone and she can't give it up. So maybe it's best for you to leave. Like you're going to drive yourself crazy, um,
yeah, that's
keep
true. He was
searching.
being a
So
good
this is
friend.
my,
He's the
yeah,
best.
yeah.
He's the best. Anyway,
I had to make it very clear to Nate when he was watching it. He's like, sorry, he gets kind of cross when he does. He's like, "So when are they going to bone?" I'm like, "They're not, sir." Like she's going to be his mother-in-law. He's like, "Oh, okay."
it's hard to tell with the anti-aging thing, but
I know.
anyway, so she was put on the next ship to go to with the honor of sailing to Valinor, where they can live an eternal life in peace. And I gotta say, that shot of them on the ship and the clouds opening and like the birds coming around and like them singing and it's like super beautiful, gorgeous. Oh my gosh. Like that was so cool.
I had to explain to Nate what so technically Valinor was closed off with this and I was like that thing, that wall thing, that was them being closed off. So they were being allowed in. And I was like trying to explain the birds, because the birds even coming in are really cool. I'm like, that's because the head Valar is really into birds. Like, I wish I could yeah, I wish I could have recorded all my little snippets to clue him in on how these little nuggets. He's like, "Oh, so that's they're inviting them in through the veil." I'm like, "Yeah, that's basically it. Good job."
Yeah. So she decides she doesn't want to do that. She jumps ship and she's swimming, and that's the last we see of her of that episode.
Right.
And then we hop over to the Southlands and we see that they're kind of not doing great, in the sense of they're kind of gross and poor and
that guy doesn't even have a shirt.
I know. Why are they so dirty? Take a shower.
So dirty.
Get clean. And also, where did they get push-up bras in the Southlands? Because that lady was like, "Hey, now, okay." No wonder that elf is like. But you kind of see that there's elves that kind of not. I wouldn't call them policing the area, but they're kind of
It kind of reminded me of, and this is a bad example, but like kind of like in Russia, how like I mean, during like the communist days, I'm not sure how Russia is now, but how I've seen it portrayed in movies. Sorry, Russia. I don't know. I'm just saying that like the talk is monitored. Everything is monitored so that no uprisings can happen. And so it's not policing. You're right. It's more like, I don't know what else to call it, monitoring.
Yeah, yeah. Keeping in line, watching out kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we learn it's because the people of the Southlands, which we learned in the Silmarillion, most of them decided to side with Morgoth. So the elves have been put there to kind of keep an eye on the men and women to be like, hey, please don't do anything bad again, kind of situation.
Yeah.
But the men and women of the Southlands have a kind of bad taste in their mouth about the elves because they feel like they're being treated like prisoners, in the sense of, you don't trust us, we can't live in our own land, you think we're going to do something bad, you assume this of us because we're, men or whatever. And the elves had to be like, well, you proved us right once already, so you have to kind of like play by the consequences of your own actions here a little bit. But that was ages ago.
Right. I was just thinking though, like, what would they do if the elves weren't there? There's no Morgoth to go to. There's no Sauron to go to as of yet.
They would,
like, what would they have done?
I don't know, right? I don't know. So maybe they would be mean to each other. Who knows? So we meet Arondir, who is an elf.
Yes.
Who is very nice to the people of the village of the Southlands. And then we meet Bronwyn and her son Theo, which I'm sorry, no offense to that actor, I cannot stand him. Oh my gosh. Like, first of all, what is that haircut? I know it's the Southlands. You probably had to cut your hair with a sickle or something. I don't know.
A scythe.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. I'm like, why are you so annoying?
Because he's got that teenage angst, Abby.
I'm going to go back to a quote that Lizzie said about.
I was wondering if you're going to do that.
Theo, Ashley was talking about the Rings of Power with Lizzie, and she said, she said to things that Leo was doing, she was saying, "That's not a good idea, Theo."
Yeah.
Like, she would say that out loud, or she would say, "Yeah, Theo, you're making it harder. Why are you doing this?" And I responded, "Yeah, Theo's the worst." Anyway,
I did not like how he disrespected his mama, and I was like, "Girl, look in the mirror."
Yeah. Also, what kind of name is Theo? There's so much cooler names out there. I do not like that name. Anyway, and so you kind of feel this like, what's the word? Like hatred of the elves.
Here. Yeah, pointy ears.
Yeah.
Knife ears. All the nicknames.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, it doesn't really show why they do this, but Theo breaks into someone's old barn and finds a broken sword, which we find out has the mark of Sauron on it that we see with Galadriel. She finds that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then at the very end of that episode, we see a shooting star, I thought they would say, in with the Harfoots. It's a shooting star. And it's this giant meteor thing. And you see Nori Brandyfoot, who that character is so cute. Though all of the Brandyfoot and the Harfoots are adorable.
It's Lizzie's favorite character is Nori.
I know.
She loves her.
I just love their costume design of like how they're hiding, like try to hide, and they have these, but their headpiece like all of the foliage and stuff like that is still looks pretty on their heads. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
whoever was the costume designer for that, amazing.
Amazing.
And we kind of learn about the life of a Harfoot and how they're travelers and they don't stay in one place like hobbits do, and they actually have to go on adventures. And they're very I was reading this thing about the Harfoots and things like that, of like why they eat so much, and it's because they don't know where their next meal is going to be from, because they are moving so much that they just eat whatever is available, and that's what continues the love of food for the hobbits later on, when they're ancestors of the hobbits later on.
But the problem is that they're actually walking and using that energy, whereas the later don't.
So we get to see a little bit of their cute life of just these adorable Harfoots. And then Nori sees a meteor come down, and she sees that it is a man and not a meteor. And he kind of has some crazy powers. And that's the end of that episode, of them like see a man in a crater. And we might have to do a part 2 of this episode. So, next episode is the Adrift episode, and that is when Galadriel is still swimming in the ocean, in the sundering seas, and she's trying to get back to Middle Earth, which I'm like, I know elves are like pretty, they don't have to drink or eat very often or rest and stuff, but that would be hard to swim a full ocean, no matter who you are. And she comes into contact with a shipwreck. So Galadriel finds a raft with humans on it, like 4 human people, and they are kind of going crazy. They're definitely seen better days, and they get attacked by, what do they call it?
The worm.
The worm.
Of all the
and
things.
They get attacked by a sea monster, and everybody else dies on the raft except her and a man named Halbrand of the Southlands. And they're kind of like distrusting of each other, because men and women of that time and area don't like elves. It's kind of a going theme of this whole episode, this whole season, is that the men and women of Middle Earth hate elves. They don't like them.
Yeah, and she sees the raft coming, and immediately she covers her ears to hide that she's an elf.
Which is it's hard for me. I don't understand it.
They're held in such reverence in The Lord of the Rings, so that's the funny part.
Yeah.
Something I did notice in my second go around watching it, though, is that Halbrand never forces her on the ship. He never even pulls her on the ship. He literally stands, and she reaches out to him, and he pulls her in. He always left it up to her, which I thought, knowing things later, is interesting.
So they are on a tiny raft together now, her and Halbrand. And they kind of fight with each other the whole time on the raft.
They're just a little stiff. They're spatting.
Yeah. And then
the storm
it jumps to
the storm comes.
Yeah, it jumps to them surviving a storm together, and she realizes okay, this guy can he helped me, or I helped him, you know what I mean? They're okay, I can trust this person a little bit more. And you don't really know what happens to them. They just get hit by a big storm, and you're like, okay, well, we'll see. And then
in hindsight, was Osei trying to kill Halbrand?
I know. He's like, I got this one, guys. I got it.
Yeah. But no, we like Galadriel. Collateral damage.
No. So I think in the first episode there was mention of a something like a sickness or something going around in the Southlands where Bronwyn and Theo and everything was living, that like was killing crops and killing livestock or like making them really sick and things like that, and it was just kind of this gross black disease
Poisoned
thing.
grass? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have to share one more Lizzie quote. I try and like make it more like the Southlanders don't look very happy, do they? You know, I'm just trying to like kind of, how do you think they look? I was even asking that on when Galadriel was on the boat to Valinor. Like, do you think she looks excited? She's like, no, she looks scared. I'm like, exactly. Like, keep on to that. But for the Southlanders, I was like, they don't look very happy. And she says, kind of like Branch when he was sad and didn't want to sing. Like, exactly.
Exactly, Lizzie.
I was dying.
Yes. So exactly, Lizzie. That's exactly it. So
Go ahead.
I forgot to mention in the first episode that sickness was happening, and they Arondir and Bronwyn follow the kind of like where the sickness is coming from, and they find a big tunnel that's like being tunneled.
The first thing he does is jump into it.
I know why. I don't understand. Also, Arondir was supposed to leave because they were told by his commanding officer that there were no more threats. Like, there's Morgoth is done, there's no more orcs. There isn't a reason to watch these men and women of the Southlands anymore because there's no enemy. So we get to leave. We get to go back to wherever they were going to go. I don't know where they were going to go. So, but they told Arondir went to go talk to Bronwyn about it because he was going to miss her because he loves her. And that's when
I've told you 1,000 times in every way but words. That one got me. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Okay. So they found these like creepy tunnels, which he's like, I'm gonna just go in this tunnel, which I'm like, hey, that's not very smart, but okay. And she goes back to her town, and she goes into her house, and she finds out that there is a tunnel in her house, and they like come through her floorboards or whatever, and it's creepy and scary. And she then convinces the town like, hey, the orcs are still around, we gotta get out of here. And so they're going to what is the tower called?
The Watchtower of Ostorith.
Yes, and I learned from something else that it's actually made by, I think it was made by Morgoth, or like somebody like made it for Morgoth or something like that, and then when it wasn't used anymore, the elves came in and used it. I think that's what happened. That's why that piece is there later. So Durin gets Elrond to stay for dinner, and Disa, his wonderful wife, and they get to hear Elrond's proposal of the dwarves working on the new forge, which will prove to be a good thing. And at the very end of that episode, you see Arondir not being very smart. If he was in a horror movie, he would be like, no, you're not supposed to do this by yourself, crawl through scary tunnels. You see him taken by orcs, and it's scary. And then
they did that
the next
so
episode,
good. I don't know, CGI. I don't know how they did that. How they shot that thing with the hands all of a sudden just
so
like
good.
coming
Oh my gosh,
through.
we were like, so. And then speaking of Arondir, he wakes up and he's kind of in this like dirty camp situation, and he finds that he has been imprisoned by orcs, and it's kind of like a construction camp. Like they're making their prisoners do work, and they're digging, right? They're digging tunnels, like they're digging the tunnels that Arondir was in.
Which
And
orcs were so good at digging.
And I have a question about the orcs. So we see them and they all look kind of different. They, like we said, these are like the first go-abouts of orcs. But they're a little bit more like, I don't want to say like...
And they emphasize a lot. Oh, go ahead.
Can you say what you're going to say?
They emphasize a lot how they can't be in the sunlight. That is like something that they stress over and over and over and over and over again, which makes sense because at the end, when Mordor is made,
there's pretty much no sunlight.
It's made specifically so they can be out in it, and the sunlight was not going to bother them. Sorry, spoiler.
Which I didn't really get that in the Lord of the Rings, which I don't know if that's in the story at all, that they can't really be in sun, but
that's funny. I've actually never really noticed that, but they do make a point, though, if you think about it. I mean, it's not as heavily put as in this, but they make a big deal that Sauron was able to create the Uruk-hai, that are like the elite orcs that can go out in sunlight, and that just like boggles everyone's mind. Like, what? They're out in sunlight? What? So that kind of
I get it
a little bit.
And you see while he's in this camp that there is a we're talking about the episode called Adar. And
Adar.
They you see the other elves that were with Arondir, which is kind of sad because they were excited to go home, and you see that they didn't make it. And they keep hearing this word, Adar, that the orcs keep calling kind of like their leader person. And in Elvish, Adar means father, which is confusing to Arondir because he doesn't understand why they're using Elvish words, because they have their own language. And it would be Black speech. And they also, I feel like, wouldn't, kind of like how the opposite is that the elves and stuff don't like using Black speech because they're like, it's like an evil language. We don't like to use it, or, you know, it's kind of like not gross, but like they just don't like using it. It's too evil to speak it.
It's not clean and pretty like Elvish.
But I would feel like the orcs would feel the same way of using old Elvish words, like but when you think about it, orcs used to be elves, so I wonder
if there is some kind of memory wiping though in the process.
Yeah, brainwashing.
It's not like they go back and try and be elves again. They are. Also, they make a point that, you know, Adar is looking for something. They're like looking through all this metal that they keep, you know, piling up.
Yeah, they're looking for something. Arondir doesn't know what they're looking for. And it's pretty bad out there. A lot of his elven friends die trying to get out, and it's just sad.
And then with the water. Lizzie has seen that scene so many times, and every single time, Mom, is it poison water? Is he poisoning him? Is it poison? I'm like, Lizzie, you've seen this already. Like, you know it's not.
But it is dangerous water because he still died when he drank it. So
just causes one to cut your throat, apparently.
Yes. So that's where Arondir is. And he makes it. He doesn't make it out, but he gets to meet Adar. Then
And that whole scene with them talking, I'm sorry. I wanted so much more. He's like, I was born in Beleriand. That's like I was born in America. Like,
yeah.
where in Beleriand,
Yeah.
Arondir?
He says by the
Like that
river.
tells you at least the timeline. But then, yeah, by the river with the sage blossoms. What river? What river are we talking about here?
Who
I don't.
knows?
I
Who
don't get it.
knows? So we're going back to Galadriel and Halbrand, and they wake up on a ship, and they find out that it is a ship captained by Elendil, who takes them to the beautiful island of Numenor, which when I first watched this 2 years ago, we hadn't gotten to Numenor yet. And when we were reading the Silmarillion. So I'm like, where? Huh?
I was trying to
like,
explain things, but also not give too many things away. It was hard.
so, Numenor, as you remember, was ruled by men that were descended from Elrond's brother, Elros. And they were kind of
Yep.
like the Valar's favorite people, I would want to say.
Because they were the
They just
friends
got
of the elves.
yes. So they went to Numenor, Halbrand and Galadriel, and they were not treated very well because they hate anyone that does not live on their island, evidently. And they also very much hate elves. Which is crazy to me because, like, even Galadriel in the show is like, I don't understand why they don't like us. Like, we have given them so much stuff. Why do they suddenly not like us? And also, like, when there's a scene in Numenor where they're doing like a puppet show for children, it's about Galadriel. So they're evidently, it's like they haven't banned anything like elven, but like if you're a real elf, we don't like you, but we're gonna like talk about you and like read stories about you, whatever, and think you're cool, but we don't also like you. It's so confusing. I don't understand. Anyway,
Well, it. So one thing I did
yeah,
like, and it's hard because I literally was just like re-listening to our episodes about that part of the book, and it it is interesting. It's not quite as black and white as it is in the book, because in the book there were some of the faithful, the Elendili, that were friends of the elves still, and still, held the Valar in, high regard. And then there was the we're better than everyone else. We're even better than the even better than the elves, and we're even better than the Valar, and we can take on the Valar later. So like there was very much two
yeah,
camps, but in this
yeah,
thing, no camps.
I know. Well, Elendil was kind of on the fence.
But it is not, yeah.
So
That feeling, I feel like they got pretty well, and also with the very big distinction of the elves and the Valar gave you this island. No, we earned this island because we fought in the War of Wrath on the right side. No one gave this to us. We earned it.
it's like a generational game of telephone. Like the story kind of changed over like generations, because I could see like Galadriel, who was alive then, said like, no, this is what happened. And then Muriel, who was not alive then, was like, no, this is what my father, like, blah blah, or like my grandfather, blah blah. It's like, no, girl, like I was there.
Yeah.
So I mean, she wasn't there,
another
but
interesting thing, another interesting thing to point out is that Pharazôn, you see Pharazôn, but he's not the Pharazôn that we thought he would be. I mean, his characteristic of being a persuasive leader is true. His thing about not liking elves, still, accurate. But I'm curious. I'm waiting for maybe season 2, because Muriel in the book, she's not a queen by herself at all, like it is in the movie, in the show.
Yeah.
Which it's fine, you know, but it that was one thing that I was just like, huh? Like when I first watched it. But you know, I like the woman in charge thing. I like it. And Palantir, what an adorable old man. Like, okay,
I know.
here's your acting role. We need you to lay in this bed and look adorable with this little cap thingy on. Can you do that for us? And we'll pay you so much money. Like,
And look real sad sometimes. So they are in Numenor, and Galadriel thinks that she found Halbrand's genealogy and that he is the missing
king of the Southlands.
king to the Southlands, which I'll get into it later what I think about that, because I have a theory of that whole thing. But we'll do it next episode.
I did like the horse riding scene. Sorry, the horse riding scene. I love it so much. So happy about that scene. So happy. Lizzie was like, that was like one of her favorite scenes with Galadriel. She's like, she really loves horses, doesn't she, Mom? I'm like, she really does. She really does.
Oh.
But also the quads on that actress. Like, do you notice that like most people like sit in the saddle and they kind of go up and down with the horse? No, she is full on squatting above the saddle in most of the scenes. And she doesn't go up and down. She is holding that squat. Like, I don't know a ton about riding horses, but it looks just so effortless. I know it's a ton of effort, but I'm just saying, like, the elf riding a horse, that is what I would imagine. Like, it just smooth, like not jostling about, you know, like, but oh man, sorry. I loved that scene so much. And also the Temple of Records or whatever, that being on the other side, very accurate to the books.
And also, I love that we get to see some like tapestry things of like,
yes.
Oh, I have to go back because I don't remember if it was where the Palantir was or if it was where the records were kept. But there was like a room that had like relics in it.
And I was like, later.
I know, but like they had like different. It kind of looked like a museum, and I kind of wanted to like see if we could notice anything. That was in the museum thing. Anyway, and so let's jump actually to Nori and the Harfoots, and what they have called him this season is the Stranger, which is the man that was in the fiery rock. They are ready to go on their seasonal migration, but her dad hurt his foot, which looked. I'm sorry. Why did they have to show it like that? It made me like want to barf. I'm like,
blueberry indeed. I love it.
I know. Ooh. No, but like the scene where the close up of his leg turning the wrong way. Why?
Sorry. And the medical person in me actually like loved that scene. I'm like, that looks so cool. I wish I could see an X-ray vision of that happening.
So we learn they have like a little Nori has been taking care of the Stranger this whole time, and she learns that he has some like powers, and he's very interested in the stars, and he needs to go back to where the stars looked like this, and he tried to show her what it is, and he has like these strong powers to bring things back to life or to heal things and blah blah blah. And he stumbles in on their festival that they're having before their seasonal migration. And I'm sorry, that part where they're reading about like which Harfoots got left behind because of like death and stuff, and you see Poppy just sobbing because they mentioned all her family. I know.
I can't.
I know.
They laugh at that one guy, like killed by bees. He always was an idiot. Like, I kind of love that too.
I know. But so the Stranger is going to help them on their migration. And so he's kind of getting into their family life now, which I think is very cute. Like he's becoming like a part of their migration. but
Right.
he's still not talking a lot. And this is the episode we get to hear the song that's so beautiful. And then Poppy's
one
song
of my
that she
favorites.
sings. So pretty. And then we'll end on the 4th episode, and we'll have to do a part 2 for the last 4 episodes. We go back to Galadriel and Numenor, and she is trying to convince Muriel to please help the people of the Southlands. There has been shown like evidence
the mark was
that the
actually the map of where he was gonna go.
Yeah, the mark of Sauron was actually a map, and she's like, "This is actually in the Southlands, and we need to go help the people of the Southlands." And they were like, no." And she was kind of mad.
Not our problem.
And yeah, not our problem. We're not going to waste our time on that. They're just gross Southlanders. And
one thing I did love is the dynamic between Halbrand and Galadriel in Numenor, in that he is just so manipulative in such a cunning way. He even like shows her, this is how I would manipulate my enemy. And like, she just is like, oh yeah, good note. Thank you for that. And that not being like, wait, are you manipulating me?
Yeah, I know, right? So
also the Berserker moment from Halbrand.
I know. Ugh. How did that guy live? I don't know. Yeah. But so finally, like, she convinces Muriel to send some troops. Muriel to send some troops to Middle Earth because she goes to King Palantir, who was kind of like, she sees the Palantir, the ball thing, and says that like there was a rebellion because the king wanted to renew relations with the elves, and then Muriel was placed on the throne because the people didn't want her dad there anymore, and because of that there was all these bad things that were going to happen in Numenor, and she's like, okay, maybe I can fix it by going to help on Middle Earth. So that's how that and her vision is Numenor being destroyed by a tsunami, which I'm like, that's terrifying. Why does she have to be holding a baby? Why do they bring babies?
With the babies!
Why do they have to bring babies into this? Huh? I don't know.
Don't forget about Isildur.
Yeah, and Isildur is mentioned, and he always is being called to Middle Earth. Like this lady's voice is going, Isildur. He's like, I should follow that creepy voice. That sounds like a good plan.
What's interesting though is they mention his brother just like the tiniest little bit about how apparently the brother thought that Middle Earth would be the new Numenor, which it doesn't say what happened to the brother though. Like, did he go to Middle Earth and they just like, oh, he must have died because he's not here? Or did he actually die? Like, it's very mysterious. But I was wanting to explain to Nate how Isildur, because he couldn't remember who Isildur was in the Lord of the Rings, or, you know, and he doesn't know Elendil either. And I'm like, so those guys are going to be the guys that are the hands in the Argonath. But it doesn't make sense how you go from the brother being mysteriously gone to building the Argonath. So that's kind of where I was like,
find a good enough actor.
Fill in that gap.
Maybe we'll see him in season 2.
Yeah, maybe.
But
but I do feel like, again, they may not have gotten down the exact details right, but the feeling, the characteristic of Isildur being this guy that can't do anything right. That's basically Isildur, and that's going to come true later. Like, just can't do anything right. They nailed that.
So
always trying to do the easy way or a shortcut.
Yeah. So we also learned about the Numenor's white tree, which is cool. And
yes. Oh, I love the Valar crying thing. That was so cool.
Like the tears of the Valar is if the tree is losing petals. So that
Yes,
was
I
pretty cool.
loved
Kind of
that.
call back to those trees that are a very important Tolkien thing.
Because there's
So,
more than one white tree. Gosh, so many white trees.
And then, kind of near the end, really quickly to end this episode, but Elrond learns that Durin has a new powerful ore that they've been mining, and there was a lot of secrets about it, and they find out it's called Mithril. And we learn more about the Mithril, but right now it is a secret, and it's powerful, and they don't know much about it. And the King Durin's dad, doesn't trust Elrond and thinks that's the reason why he's at the mountain and saying like he's going to steal it from us and all that stuff. And then we see that Arondir is let free by Adar, the leader of the orcs, because he says, you know what, I'll let you go, but you have to go tell the Southlanders a message from me. And that message is, you can come follow me and join Morgoth and this side, or you can die. And
Can we have a moment
out
about the tree for a second? Him with the tree.
Yeah. He was sad to chop it down.
Because he was a grower and he was loyal to Yavanna, I feel. That was like,
Yes.
how people have like patron saints? He had like a patron Valar, and that was his.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love that scene so much. And I'm sorry, that warg.
I know.
I was trying to explain to Lizzie what a warg was, and she's like, so you're telling me it's like a mix between like a wolf and a hyena? I'm like, yeah.
And an orc. It looks disgusting.
Yeah.
And so we also learned that Waldrig, the gross old man from the Southlands, was the one who had the sword in the beginning, because I don't know if he was around during Morgoth, maybe it was his father or something, but that he tells Theo that sword that he found was a gift for men from Sauron, and you learn that Waldrig is not a good guy. And he's trying to lead Theo into not being a good guy. And so we're ending this episode halfway through the season of Rings of Power season 1, where Muriel and Galadriel and Halbrand and Elendil are going to go back to Middle Earth to help the Southlanders. The Southlanders are being overtaken by orcs, and Nori and her family are trying to cross the world with the stranger. That's where we're at right now.
I did notice one cool thing about while they were on the ship, just because I'm not sure if you're going to start with them already in Middle Earth, but the one cool thing about the Numenorians on the ship that I noticed, that these little nuggets can't just be a coincidence. They did this for a reason, and it was for people like me that was looking for it. So they're on the ship going to Middle Earth, and Galadriel is there, and you can see moonlight, and they show Galadriel, moon, yes, and then because that was the first light that the elves saw when they were awoken, and then Isildur wakes up, and all of a sudden it's the sunrise, because that's the first light that the men saw. See? I'm going to just say, the exact tiny details, some of the lore might not be correct, but I think the overall, like I said, characteristics or vibes are 100% legit. How Elrond was like half elven, but so he's kind of treated a little differently than most elves. The characteristics of the dwarves having their pride, and they're secretive, but they're also very loving and loyal. The Numenorians and their pride about, wanting to be, the men are the best and the elves are, second rate. The Harfoots and how hardworking they are, and how loyal they are to their family. And it just chef kiss. I'm here for it.
So I guess I just want to end it by saying that we have to split this episode into 2 parts because we love talking about the Rings of Power so much. So I think some things that got cut out was some stuff about Durin. So I'm just going to go heavy on the Durin, like, stan, like I am a big fan of Durin next episode. So I'm just going to have to get into it a little bit more next time. So, because you guys missed out on it in this episode. But we enjoy the Rings of Power, and we enjoyed talking about the Rings of Power, and we're excited for the second season. No spoilers, please. And we are excited to keep talking about this and this world. And I know some people have opinions, but like we said before, that's totally cool. We're going to enjoy it ourselves. And if you want to follow along with this 2-parter episode of kind of recapping and also talking about, what we talked about, little tidbits, little fun nuggets of info, of lore that we loved. If you enjoyed this episode, thank you. We loved having you. And I'm sorry that the audio got all messed up. I'm going to blame myself. I live kind of in a weird area, and the Wi-Fi is a little spotty, and I apologize. I'm so sorry. So hopefully this doesn't make it too weird and jumbly, but again, I apologize, and I hope that you enjoy the episode.
Thank you for teaching me a day.
Yay!